everybody, Sean from Movie Assault here, and it's time for another movie review. This time it is the third episode in the January cage match for 2023. This time out, I wanted to take a look at Vampire's Kiss from 1988. This may be possibly the greatest Nicolas Cage film ever, or greatest Nicolas Cage performance ever. As a film, it's not quite as successful as his performance. But I'll kind of get into that as the review goes on. This is a film that when it came out in the 80s, I didn't know anything about it. And at the time, a lot of goofy, like horror comedies, like Teen Wolf and stuff like that were coming out. And I saw a still from this picture. It could have been this very one right here. I don't remember exactly which one it was, but I thought to myself, oh, that looks odd. And I didn't think much of it. And then a friend of mine had a copy of it on a dubbed VHS tape, like she recorded it off HBO or something. And I asked her about it, and she said, oh, it's a terrible comedy. My dad thinks it's awful. Don't watch it. And that was it. That was my opinion of the movie for the next 35 years. I really didn't invest any time thinking about it, looking at it, wanting to watch it, nothing. And then I picked up a copy at Dollar Tree and figured I would give it a chance. And I put it in the January cage match this year and found myself really enjoying it. Plot-wise, it revolves around a man named Peter Lowe, who is played by Nicolas Cage. He's sort of the ultimate yuppie. He slicks his hair back, he wears fancy suits, he does a job where it looks like he does next to nothing but makes a ton of money. He has a secretary that works for him, played by Maria Conchita Alonso, and her name is Alva. And I'm surprised I forgot that because he shouts her name over and over again in the movie. But he takes a special pleasure in kind of making her feel low. He kind of works her, gives her these ridiculous tasks to perform that are nearly impossible, and then berates her for not being able to do them quickly. He gets a special kind of glee out of that. Well, he tends to go out at night quite a bit, and one night he goes out and he meets a woman named Rachel, played by Jennifer Beals. And they come home, they share a night of passion, and she apparently is a vampire, and she bites him on the neck. The next morning, he wakes up and he feels pain in his neck. He puts a bandage over his neck, but there's no wound there. And over the next few days, he thinks he's transforming into a vampire, slowly but surely. His behavior starts to get a little off kilter. He starts to be extremely cruel to Alva. He just kind of goes off the deep end, and I'll leave it at that, because the joy of this movie is watching his sort of transformation into what he thinks is a vampire. When I started watching this movie, I really thought it was terrible. I didn't like it at all. I thought Nicolas Cage, he had this sort of put-on British accent that I thought was ridiculous and unnecessary. And then the transformation scene started happening. You know, he started sleeping under his overturned couch, and the performance started to getting super unhinged, and I started to warm up to the movie. And after the last 40 minutes of the movie, I went from a completely negative opinion of this movie to overwhelmingly positive. Now, that is not to say that there's no weaknesses to this movie, because obviously if I didn't like it until 40 minutes before the end, there are some weaknesses. So Nicolas Cage has always had this reputation for being an actor who throws himself into his roles, if they are worthy of his full attention, that is. And he subscribes to something that he calls nouveau shamanic. And he talks about that a little bit in his role in The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which I'll review next week. But basically, if you want to see somebody completely committed to a role, you've got to watch Vampire's Kiss. I really can't say enough about it. If you do a search of memes and GIFs and all sorts of things, this is somebody, I think another reviewer said that this movie was made for memes or memes were made for this movie. Um, and I don't disagree with that, but it was totally marketed wrong. As you can see from this cover, it looks like it's a romantic comedy, and it really isn't. It is funny. It's a dark comedy with horror elements, but honestly, if you really pay attention to the subtleties of Nicolas Cage's performance, this is a depiction of somebody heartbreakingly going insane. And that's when I realized that his yuppie put-on character, the goofy accent and everything, that's a character too, and he starts to transform from one character to another. So I don't think this guy was really sane to begin with, and now he's going off the deep end thinking that he's turning into a vampire, to the point where he wears goofy, cheap looking vampire teeth when he goes out to a club. He starts sleeping under his overturned couch. He thinks daylight is affecting him. I really can't say enough about the performance of Nicolas Cage in this film, and I've said it over and over again in this review. But the film itself, the plot is kind of threadbare, and that's really the only thing that holds it back from my highest recommendation. Really, this is a movie that you have to see. You really have to experience it at least once. So I'm giving Vampire's Kiss an 8 out of 10. I'd give it a 9 out of 10 if the story was a little bit better. And honestly, the first part of this is probably the hardest part to sit through. But once he starts going into full tilt boogie, it is really something to behold. So there you go. That's my review of Vampire's Kiss from 1988. And next week, as I said, I'll be reviewing The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. So stay tuned for that. Thanks again for watching. If you made it this far to the end of the video, I really appreciate it. As always, feel free to comment below. Have you seen Vampire's Kiss? Let me know what you thought. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Take it easy.